Commissioner Silver laid down the law banning Donald Sterling for life from the NBA, fining him $2.5 million, in addition to trying to have the owners force him to sell the team. Now joining us on the hotline is a man that played in the NBA for 13 years, played with the Heat, Magic, Nets, Bucks, Celtics, and Grizzlies, and yes, his first 4 years were with the LA Clippers, now doing some great work with RespectFoundation55.org, and that's our good buddy Keyon Dooling. Keyon, it's Zach in Philly. How you doing?
Z, thank you, my friend, for having me on the show, my friend.
Well, thank you for coming on, and I thought Adam Silver did a fantastic job when he banned Donald Sterling for life earlier in the week. It's a move that had to be done. When you heard the commissioner speak, what was your reaction when you heard the news of the punishment?
Yeah, I was very, I think Adam did the right thing. So I definitely, felt good about that. But I also want to raise this point. The dialogue has to start. We have to put an action plan in, not to just remove them, but to to change some of these thought processes that we have in this country, to tear down some of these invisible barriers that keep certain people down. We have to start that dialogue, and people actually have to listen, especially when minorities talk about it. Just listen. We're just trying to share our experience that things like this are still going on, thought processes like this are still going on, and we just have to start the dialogue so we can change it.
And it amazes me still in the year 2014, we still have to deal with these issues. And now the next step in this process is the owners to try to force Donald Sterling to sell the team. Do you believe the owners will be supportive of the commissioner's message?
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, at the end of the day, the NBA, we're individual teams, we're one collective family. And, when somebody does something that is so damaging to the brand that they can no longer be affiliated with the brand, it's a privilege to own the team. And so you have to have more than just money. You have to have high character, just like the players, just like everybody else. Our character has to be. And don't get me wrong, mistakes will be made, and people do make mistakes. And with Donald Sterling, I don't hate him. I actually love him. And I want to combat his hate with love and teach him that, hey, listen, nobody's inferior to anyone. We're all equal. And, we just have to get to know each other in a different way.
Sterling should do the right thing, and he should sell the team. And there's some reports out there that he said that he won't sell the team. Do you believe he'll ultimately do the right thing and sell the team?
No, listen, when people show you who they are, you just believe them. And he's shown time and time again that not only does he fight lawsuits, but he doesn't walk away from, business deals. And so we'll have to be creative or whatever. And at the end of the day, I believe his identity is the Clippers organization. And more so, he's more known for being the Clippers owner than, his owning Rodeo Drive. And so I believe it's a big part of his identity. I believe that he understands that, this franchise will continue to grow in value. And so that makes it a little complicated. But let me tell you something, man. The NBA has the best lawyers in the world and the best team in the world. And not only do they have, one of the great up-and-coming young leaders, but they also have Uncle Dave in the background, helping out, sharing that experience as well. And so we're all united when this fight is not good for our game, and we can't stand for it.
We're spending a few minutes with former NBA player Keyon Dooling, now with RespectFoundation55.org. We'll talk about his foundation and the great work that they do in just a few minutes. But you played under Donald Sterling. He drafted you 4 years in your first 4 years in the league. Describe Donald Sterling to me. What kind of owner was he, and what relationship did he have with you?
Well, we didn't have a personal relationship, and that's not uncommon. I mean, it's rare that you get to have, conversations with team ownership. There are, occasions, there are exceptions to that rule. In my experience, I had conversations with Wig up in Boston. I had conversations with Rich DeVos, Mickey Harrison. So those guys, were more approachable than Donald T.
And you are a player that was a player rep. You're very respected in the league. And Donald Sterling, there has been some talk about him in the past with some of his controversial history. Did you ever hear of him being racist? Did you ever hear of these comments?
No, I didn't actually hear him. And you don't actually see him. The thing that's so troubling this type of racism is that it's the invisible kind. It's the kind that you can't see or touch. You can only feel if you're one of the people who are being oppressed or systematically not able to progress. And so that's why it's so dangerous. I would rather it be out front and you can hear it and see it, and you know what I mean, so you can know where people stand. But that concealed racism that still exists in our country is the kind that's ripping us to the core, and that's why so many other countries have kind of moved ahead of us in the in overall.
Well, I was sitting there on Saturday, and I read the TMZ article, and I heard the 10-minute audio conversation, and I was just absolutely shocked. When you were sitting there and you first heard that audio conversation from TMZ, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
I couldn't believe what I was hearing as far as, I had never, heard a conversation like that, and so I was intrigued by the conversation because I really, I wanted to see how far he would go. And when I heard the second part of the tape, it was even worse. But it was really, really scary because he said, he didn't just say himself. He said, the circle and, the people that he runs with, and historically, and it's always, and when you have that kind of thinking, it's really scary because Donald Sterling can impact the economy out in Los Angeles. Just imagine the people who went to bid for the properties to lay the foundation, or to do the landscaping, or to do the lights, or to do the fixtures in the place. To have that kind of thinking where they're eliminated before they get in the door. It's scary, man. It's scary, especially for me as a black man. It's scary for my children to know for me to know that my children may have to still deal with some of these invisible layers. And I've been so successful.
And also, you look at the commissioner, Adam Silver, and I thought he hit it out of the park with his suspension, and he made the right move and really listened to what the players and some of the other owners were saying. But it was a private conversation, but it did turn out to be public. Did you have any problem with how these tapes were released?
Well, so I would say this. Look, this is America. We do have a right to privacy, freedom of speech, freedom of worship, and all those great liberties that we so fought hard for. However, there's several times, where a police investigation, they go undercover, they wirestop, they release things. The NSA, the government can wiretap and get our records and everything now. And so this isn't uncommon in this new age of technology and et cetera. Now, and so, yeah, it might have been, it might have came out wrong as far as the way it came out, but it came out right because we got to hear what his thought process is.
I agree with you. As we're spending a few minutes with Keyon Dooling, Zach Gelb here with you on WHIP Radio in Philadelphia. Doc Rivers is the current coach of the Clippers. You had a relationship with him when you played with the Celtics. There couldn't be a more better coach, in my opinion, in the league right now to handle this situation than Doc Rivers. He's done a really sensational job with this.
Yeah, Doc is he's a spectacular leader. He's a spectacular human being. But Doc went through a lot. His house got burned down. The first. All the memories that he had to that point, with the exception of those Ali gloves. I know he did get some of those out, but his house got burned down because of racism and the fact that he was married to a white woman. And so, to have experienced that firsthand, and then to have, been able to recover and deal with that and soar and win championships, and then to, leave a historic organization like the Celtics and go and step into a place where you have a leadership role and all that. Now you know that, the person who gave you this opportunity feels so low of not only you, but everybody who looks like you. Hey, man, I know that is disheartening for Doc.
This issue unified a lot of people. You saw comments from Magic Johnson, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant. You saw the jerseys and the warm-ups were flipped out and were reversed. What did you believe about the players in the league, and how do you think they handled this situation?
I think they did it in a partnership way. I think Adam's judgment reflected the players' pulse. And, listen, I think he has a different style of leadership from Dave. Mr. Stern, he had to be tough. He had a drug problem when he came in. The league had a drug problem. The championship games were tape delayed. So it was a different tone and disposition that he had to use. And so Adam was around for all that, man. We've been grooming Adam for a long time for this. We knew he was the heir apparent. And, his leadership technique is a little bit more, how do I say it? It's a little bit more Adamish. It's him. It's who he is. And I think he did a great job of communicating and coming down swift on this and, worrying about the repercussions later.
If you were a player on the Clippers, and let's just say if the punishment wasn't severe and they let off Sterling a little bit easy, would you have sat out a game?
Well, I would have sat out if if that's what the team decided that we were going to do. I also believe that there is a due process. And so when the tape was first released, I think it was premature for them to sit that game out. And I think they made the right decision because the result that they were looking for got done anyway. The result as a player that we were looking for. So sometimes it's patience and process that you have to understand, and sometimes the way you have to fight these new battles, you can't fight them with your fist or with your emotion. You have to be methodical, and you have to work the system, and you have to, be consistent and not let this moment go where we can't start this dialogue or this conversation.
You've been very loquacious on this matter, and you're doing a great job, and I hear all the radio interviews and TV interviews that you're doing. But if you were able to sit in a room with Donald Sterling and just talk about it with this incident that has occurred, what would you say to Donald?
Oh, I would tell him I love him. Hey, man, God bless you. I love you. There's a lot of people who are filled with hate. And what I want to do is I want to, try and find out the origin of that so we can start taking that hate and turning it and fighting it with love and re-educating and reprogramming and teaching him. Because a lot of times when you're rich, when you're wealthy, you don't abide by rules, laws. You're kind of over everything, and so it's very tough to discipline yourself. And so what I would say is that, hey, let's start some dialogue, with some cool heads or whatever, but he has to know the significance of his thought process. And, we can't just not talk about this anymore because minorities, we deal with this issue on a daily basis, and, it's not cool for us to talk about it. And so when you have an opportunity to talk about some of these invisible walls, it's a great opportunity to advance our country to another level.
I got a chance to check out your website, respectfoundation55.org, and there's an extremely emotional, touching video. It's about 11 minutes long. I encourage everyone to check it out. And I also saw your interview with Katie Couric from a while back. Just tell me a little bit more about your foundation, because you do some really solid work, and you have a really remarkable story.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. So I was molested when I was 7 years old, and I didn't deal with it until I was 32, the bottom floor of a mental institution, because I had post-traumatic stress disorder. And I didn't know I was a candidate. I didn't know what that was. All I knew was that I couldn't stop my mind from racing. And so at the core of that was the compression of being molested. And so I had to deal with it. I had to walk away from the game. I had to give up $1 million back. And I had to seek healing over my passion, which was basketball at the time. And so from that healing, I wrote a book called What's Driving You? How I Overcame Abuse and Learned to Lead in the NBA. And I bring art, music, and the words of the story as well to allow people to choose their means of healing. If you like music, well, we got great music for sexual abuse. If you like artwork, well, we got great healing pictures for sexual abuse. And if you like the story, if you like to read, well, then, man, my story is magnificent.
And also, we've covered sexual abuse on this show with Heath Evans, a former NFL player, because of everything that happened with Jerry Sandusky at Penn State. And the most important thing is for those victims to understand that it's not their fault, because it's never their fault. And also, they have to get that immediate help. How important is it to get that immediate help and just really try to get your life moving on from those unfortunate events?
Yeah, it's really important to, deal with these issues immediately. Listen, it happens to 1 out of every 4 young ladies, 1 out of every 6 young men before the age of 16, and then there's 30% like myself who were still in denial about it. So that's really half of our children. And so at the end of the day, we got to do a great job of doing prevention and awareness. I believe that is the key. And then we got to have resources in place like therapy and services. And then we got to also have safety nets, because a lot of this is happening from families and people who we're close to. And so there's a fear factor for kids to tell. And so what we have to do is we have to make it miserable when some of these people do this and make the crimes, more punishable. But we also have to re-educate, because the cycle continues, because usually the people who create who continue these cycles have been victimized in the first place. Prevention, awareness, and therapy are the keys for me.
Once again, that website is respectfoundation55.org, respectfoundation55.org. Excellent job today, Keyon. We appreciate a few minutes. Thanks so much, my friend.